We are fortunate to have with us Dr. Padmakali Banerjee, our Honorable Pro Vice Chancellor. She would be chairing this session, and we all know that she has been the major builder and the constructor of the innovative pedagogy and the curriculum that we have at Amity University, Gurugram. And also, she has mentored many international schools in creating their pedagogy and curriculum. Also she helps us in being optimistic and positive, because that is positive psychology is her area of interest. And she's written a very popular book on the power of positivity, optimism, and Seventh Sense, which is a very popular book, and is also kind of a manual for those who can build their optimism for success. Also present in the panel are Dr. Anita Vora. She's the director and principal of GEMS International School, Gurugram. She has been an eminent educationist with a vast and varied experience, a PhD in English literature. Her interest in child psychology, pedagogy, mythology, and theater in education led her to her present career in education. We have Mrs. Nirmal Yadav. She's the principal of CCA School, Gurugram. She's the founder principal of CCA School, Gurugram, and her teaching career spans over 35 years. With keen interest in writing, she has contributed to article on child development and good parenting. Uh, Mr. Anshul Patania, Managing Director, Patania Public School, Rohtak, is also here. He is the recipient
Yeah.
of prestigious Governor Award. He has varied experiences in his career, including that in Bollywood, which really caught our interest. And we have Ms. Aarti Chopra. She's the principal of Amity International School, Sector 46, Gurugram. Mrs. Aarti Chopra is a dedicated educationist with over 27 years of experience in the field of education as a teacher, mentor, trainer, planner, and skill developer, and a tireless worker for the cause of children in a firm exponent of emulgating modern skills and teacher empowerment in education. A warm welcome. Then we have Madhu Sharma. She's the Vice Principal of Shanti Gyan International School, Delhi. She also has a vast experience in education, so very warm welcome to you as well. We have Ms. Nandita Kachuria. She's the Vice Principal of Euro International School, Gurugram. She's currently associated with Euro International Sector 10 as a Vice Principal, and she is a PhD in Management from Singhania University, Rajasthan. She holds a great experience in teaching and has presented research papers on different topics at various platforms. So we have come really, really far from the days of the rote learning and the chalk and board days when the students were really intimidated of the teachers, and although they love them too, because we all belong to that age. And also there was not much expectation from the schools, because there was a those were the days when students were on their own developing themselves as they wished to, and there was not so many expectations. But things have really changed. So now, of course, there's a lot of expectations from the schools and the teachers. So begin with, I would request Dr. Padmakali ma'am to give her expert views on the subject matter.
So thank you, Dr. Reena. A very good afternoon to one and all. In the times of Corona crisis, that we could all get together for just such a wonderful panel, I'm feeling very thrilled. I think one of the very meaningful days in this period of lockdown. And in fact, I feel very happy to be hosting this kind of a panel. And it is a kind of a thought leadership which we are really working with, the educators, be it from K-12 schools or, in the universities. Um, and thanks for having me to chair the session to my dear team, Mr. Sachin and Dr. Reena and Dr. Rumki. Well, I just thought that I'll just set the stage by saying that, if you look at the Sustainable Developmental Goals, number 4, and primarily we are looking at the kind of policy agenda framework related to how do you see globally the role of education and the role of primary schools, secondary schools, higher education, and how do you seamlessly integrate. So I just want to throw some light that, we are in a knowledge economy. In fact, we are in a post-knowledge economy, and which is very popularly people are talking of it as an innovation-driven economy, where there is a lot of focus now on a lifelong learning, because we are talking a lot about technology driven learning. So as a result, there has to be constantly innovations and development of new methodology. Then there is a very important area, especially that we have to begin if we look at any of these 17 sustainable development goals. You will see that most important will become, of course, the childhood learning and the secondary education, and how it is creating a basis for higher learning. So here, I mean, one of the very important, the data that has been collected worldwide, and I would like to focus on the developing countries, you will see that there is a lot of focus on supporting teachers within their classroom. So here, of course, we are looking at the kind of bigger challenges in the globe, which may relate to even including poverty, including the geopolitical environment, including political environment. But what is primary is that first, if you have a good quality education and good quality classroom experience, I think the learning outcome is much huge. And next, I would like to take your thoughts towards the kind of crisis that people are talking about is global education learning crisis, where we have to see that how each learner in the classroom, each participant in a class is able to learn. So, I mean, very outcome driven, output driven learning. And very importantly, that if you look at the focus that we have is we're looking at a very interesting age group, especially in the secondary and higher secondary education, that you're dealing with the most difficult times that the teenagers are facing. Because the whole, we talk about it as a education in the times of crisis, because our teenagers are facing something which none of us have faced, or I mean, world over, if you see that this kind of a challenge is paramount, where there is huge change in technology, huge change in the methodology, yet, we are expecting them to, give them a lot of understanding, right? So how do they become successful? So we have to look into their different methodology in teaching learning, which is, say, problem solving, behavioral skills, employability skills, and how each of them, you have to look at these teenagers who are going to come out of the school education and move into a higher learning institutions. They will have to themselves become an agent of change. How they will discover new project ideas, how will they innovate, come into the mainstream. So this is just, I want to just sensitize you, and to this a warm up that I'm doing. So I'm really keen to listen to each of your points of views that we're going to put together as the thoughts coming from the education leaders from the best schools in Delhi NCR. Let me also mention that if you look at the Sustainable Developmental Goals, you will see in the index, we are not even in the achievers, we are in progressing. So only few of the states like Kerala, Tamil Nadu or Himachal Pradesh, or for example, if you look at Chandigarh per se, you're falling into that, where you have promising. So there's a long way to go. And how do we bring about that change in the school education, that we create better innovators in the future, we create a better world for the students. So thank you. I'm very happy that I'm part of it. I'm going to listen to each one of you very carefully. Thank you.
Now, can I request the panelist, and I would request Ms. Aarti Chopra to begin. So could you please give your views on that?
All right. Thank you so much, Dr. Madhu. And thank you, Amity University, for giving this platform to all the educational leaders to exchange their views and at this time of COVID crisis to reorient ourselves and to check out whether are we able to reach out to our children. We are in a phase, when the world is going through a massive change. And at this point of time, I think it is the curriculum as well as, what should I say, the pedagogy, which is going to save every institution. These are the two things, the robust curriculum as well as the innovative pedagogy, which are going to be the pillars of any successful institution. So as the classrooms are now, the classrooms without walls, wherein we are having a lot of global exchange happening, and the teachers also have to think of themselves as co-learners with the children, and the students themselves have to think of becoming lifelong learners, and the institutions like ours and various others have to have a lot of room.
Good afternoon to all worthy fellow members. It's an honor and matter of pride that during this period of pandemic, Amity University gave us a chance to, come together and have a healthy discussion on this beautiful topic. From seed to blossom is what educators should focus. And here I will quote Dr. APJ Kalam. The purpose of education is to make good human beings
that are much wider and broader. Yeah.
Yes, with skills and expertise. So this statement is powerful and should be the guiding principle of whatever we plan and execute for the future. I totally agree with the mentors, with the dignitaries who are present in this meeting, and they are presenting their views. Yes, today instruction methods have changed drastically from the mostly one-directional teacher student model to a more collaborative approach where the students themselves feel empowered. I quote Mahatma Gandhi, by education, I mean an all-round drawing of the best in child and man, in body, mind, and spirit. I have been asked to, in the same of the statement, that what can be the resources that should be made available in schools to help students get that extra in their studies and skills. See, the world is changing so fast that a pose of fundamental challenge and many opportunities to an educational system. The world is shifting from an industrial economy to a knowledge economy. Keeping this in mind, to counter shift, Dr. Wegener has identified what he calls a global achievement gap. This has impacted our students in all respects. We as educators can't let this happen. We should be able to bring in our old age shastras to use and help students be more calm and ready for any uncertainty which future brings in. Yoga sessions specifically to the age of the student should be planned as a resource. Projects which fires the imagination of the students need to be regular. As educators, we should encourage practical projects from students even if projects do not succeed. Resources related to community service should be inculcated in regular curriculum of the students. In my opinion, the assessment of the realigned students should be rigorous. Real world relevance needs to be embedded into K-12 curricula. They should uncover and discover rather than merely skimming over the content. We should provide ample resources in this stream to ensure.
Reena, I think we are moving ahead in time.
Okay.
The students spend quality time and generate positive energy. Ma'am, it is likely to be over. I think in the end, I'll sum up my thoughts with another quote of Dr. A.P. Kalam, that educationists should build the capacities of the spirit of inquiry, creativity, entrepreneurial, and moral leadership among students and become their role models. Thank you.
Thank you so much. We'll move to Dr. Amrita.
Thank you, Reena. Coming back to education, the topic for the day is very, very key. And of course, we are all facing a time which is very different. So without quoting anybody, I think we all have been reading a lot. All educators are here, and I'm not going to get into that. But the very way a child learns begins when the child is born. It's a sort of a loop of experimentation and self-feedback, personalized self-feedback. How do we learn to walk? You try and you fall. Nobody is telling the child, oh no, you have to do it. Nobody is trying to motivate. It is a self-motivated exercise. It is an experience, and it is a mindset of growth that is naturally there intrinsically in a human child. The schooling system was designed for a different purpose. We had industrialization, and habit training of a certain nature was probably required. Therefore, what started was gurukuls were replaced by straight row schools. And that continued, and that has sort of been ingrained in the system a bit too much, and changing it, though all progressive schools are trying to do it, and in different ways. But changing it is still quite a struggle in the overall structure. People are already referring to SDGs and everything else, and we incorporate that very, very systematically into our teaching learning pattern. Essentially, to put it briefly and in one line, I'd say what we really need to do is to bring life into the lives of children. If we are making them read, cram, study to test or teach to test, etc., it's taking the life out of the very life of the child. What we need to bring back is rigor. What we need to bring back is emotions, emotional intelligence, resilience. And I think this pandemic is, in a major, major way, helping all of us do that. It's opened up a lot of natural experiences when everybody is locked down in their houses. Children are learning, for example, something as simple as when milk boils, it won't fall off. Something as simple as that water will keep boiling and milk will fall off. Why does that happen? Lots of curiosity, lots of questions, lots of learning is everywhere in everything we do. And these experiences need to be essentially channelized into learning. Now, experiences by themselves will not become learning. So what we really need to ensure in the education process is to then bring in reflective practice. And that is where the teacher's role or the facilitator's role comes in, to channelize the experience, to raise those, help them raise those questions as needed.
Yes,
Yeah?
so you're talking about experiential learning and self-motivation majorly, which really, really is important. And can I now request Madhu Sharma to give us a
Thank you so much. Very good afternoon to all of you. The question that I have been given is internet a boon or a bane?
So
Extremely.
for the time being, we're just asking you to give your general view on the subject, and we'll come back to the question.
Right. So this is a very pertinent topic to talk about in this panel and in today's scenario, because we're all in a lockdown. And I think the most effective tool that we are using right now is the internet. And how I'm going to just talk about it by talking about our education system. I have been teaching for the last 30 years, and I find there are certain flaws in our education system. And one of them is that our education system is a closed one. And when I say closed one, I mean that we follow a very rigid curriculum, and there is no scope for flexibility at all. And you'll all agree the reason for that: we have time constraints. We have an examination system in which children are just giving tests about what all knowledge that they have gained in the classroom and nothing beyond it. And the second thing is that our education system is a teacher-centric one. So where is the scope for innovation or innovative pedagogy that we're talking about? Because a teacher goes in the classroom, she delivers a lesson, she asks the children, do they have any doubts? Do they have any questions? But the teacher doesn't have the time to answer all those questions. So the child goes home with with a thirst for knowledge which is not quenched in the classroom. And then what does the child do? That's where our innovative pedagogy, the most innovative teacher, the internet steps in and helps the child to solve or quench that thirst for knowledge which the child is seeking. And that can be done, and we all know that when the child does that, so we are changing the teacher centric, the paradigm changes from teacher centric to student centric. And the children at this point, I think that's the most innovative way of learning. They're learning to be independent, they're learning to be creative, they're learning to do things on their own. They do not need a parent or a tutor or somebody at home to help them out with their problems which they face in the classroom.
So what you're trying to say is that, what they're not getting in the classroom, they're getting on the internet. And this is what
Absolutely.
extended learning that we've been talking about. So great, thank you for your views. And can we now go to Mrs. Nirmal Yadav to tell us her views?
Well, innovation, I think, Madhu ma'am, first of all, good afternoon, everyone. Madhu ma'am has just said that teachers aren't that innovative and students move to internet. Am I audible?
Yes,
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you. You see, it all depends on the leaders. How much freedom they give to the teacher to innovate, to initiate and to experiment. And that trickles down to the child. Because the variety of experiences that we give to children, it makes them an enabler. These experiences of a different kind, they build up the connections in the neurons, the brain. And every different experience adds on to that learning. So it is something like your interdisciplinary or experiential approach. And I think most of the good public schools are trying to do it. And every teacher is trying something new. Now, in most of the schools, the 3D softwares have come in, 3D printers are there. And the amazing things, the little ones even create, say class 4, 5, 6, 7. They come with such lovely things that we may not have thought of as adults. Because we have become structured, whereas the children are still with their wings open and they can achieve, provided we give them that platform. And school is the best platform for these kind of things. Your debates, declamations, competitions, theater, art, music, even excursions. I mean, our children go for skiing. I have not yet come across a school that sends its students for skiing. And we have for every class a different kind of experience. Like class 11 goes for Whitewater River Rafting each year. That is set for them. Now, these are the things that they'll remember all their life. They also build in leadership qualities, team spirit, and confidence comes with competence. It's a tall order.
Absolutely agree with you, because it's the leadership and then giving the freedom to children to bring out their own instincts. I think that is where the answers lie. And now can we go to Mr. Patania to give us his views?
To connect with all of you. I hope I'm audible to everybody.
Yes, you are.
Yeah, in fact, the topic we are discussing today is wonderful, and it's great to see that I feel innovativeness or creativity, it is limitless. It's endless. So the only proverb which I would like to share with you all today is, it's like the change is the only constant thing which is there. So with the ever evolving world where technology is growing every day, right from coming to the traditional methods of the teaching, now coming down to the modern methods or the other approaches we talk about, as we were discussing previously, it's change that is only the constant thing. So we are ever evolving. It's what prime example, Corona time, what better example? We all are on video conferencing, another change which has happened. So that is for sure that innovativeness or creativity in the pedagogy is inevitable. Of course, that has to be a part of the pedagogy, and it has to keep changing. That's the only constant thing. Now, the other part we discuss, the part of the discussion is the robust curriculum. Of course, a very peculiar example for this would be you can assume the robust curriculum as a sea or an ocean of water, and an innovative pedagogy, of course, is a motorboat through which you can sail across the ocean like that. So, once we are discussing on the curriculum, it's very important to understand that the curriculum is actually too vast. As Madam Madhu was just quoting, it's sometimes very rigid. We feel so. Sometimes it is, no doubt. But we all wish an ideal world to happen in this, and in an ideal world, we want every trait, every quality in our child or in ourselves. But the harsh reality is that sometimes when you encounter the reality, you'd find a lot of obstacles on the way. So the curriculums usually are designed to not to get maximum people learn from it rather than to get the best talent out of it. It's just a balance of it. So maybe sometimes if a curriculum sometimes is a little rigid or makes it a little ordinary, so it's not the fault of the curriculum. Actually, it's the fault of the circumstances we are in. So maybe in a populated country like we are, so we have a curriculum which is able to cater to a maximum population. But then, of course, the innovativeness of pedagogy helps us achieve all the best quality coming out of the people. So these are the views. I'm sure that today's discussion is very meaningful for all.
We're
Thank you.
actually looking forward to getting your views because this rigidity that we have experienced in the past and in our education system. So how we can make it more flexible and make it more child-centric is probably what we're looking for. And
Can I come in now, Madhu ma'am?
Yes, please. Yes, I'm Reena, and
Reena,
yes,
okay.
yeah. Please,
Yeah, okay, so
you can finish
wonderful
it and
views.
then,
Yeah, wonderful views for all the speakers, some internet connectivity issue. So I would like to just add that, in this economy, the present status that we all are in, we all have to make our students, take part and have a joint responsibility, whether it is the curriculum planning or it is a new strategy that needs to be developed. In my experience as a principal, I've seen whenever I have made my senior students partake in the responsibility, the end product is much better. So if we are aiming for in this world for the outcome-based education, and we are aiming for SDG 4 to be accomplished, wherein we want quality education to be given, we need to unlearn and relearn our strategies, and we need to now work upon this so that all the three stakeholders, the teachers to become the co-learners with students, the students to be given more responsibility in all the decision making in the school, the managements to listen to the parents, the teachers, and the children all together, and the parents also to be the co-learners. So if all the stakeholders come together, then our vision of a beautiful, world where everyone is ahead in their educational perspectives would be accomplished. So I think it's a beautiful topic, the pedagogy and the robust curriculum, and engagement of the students has to be looked into, and they need to be made accountable more and more so that they may find it interesting to take
I
part
think
in all
yes,
the decisions. Thank you so
very,
much.
very important, very extremely important that students are given the freedom to decide, and the like you come up with this excellent point that the parents should be the co-learners. So yes, and that would really help. Now, going back to the questions that we have now, Aarti, ma'am, I'll go back to you because this I saw in your profile that you have done a lot of training and you've undergone a lot of training and you're probably organizing a lot of training. So we talked about the standards that we have for the education, and just having the curriculum and the pedagogy will not help that much if the teachers are not up to the standard. So what kind of
Absolutely.
teaching? Yeah. So what kind of teaching and specific training we should have for the teachers to
Yeah.
to
Yeah,
focus
definitely.
this?
It's a beautiful question. I would say that we have moved into the times of competencies, where a competency is defined as collectively having knowledge, skill, as well as the behavior and attitude. So if all these things are taken together, then teaching and learning strategies need to match the appropriate domains of learning. as we are shifting the pedagogy from teaching to learning, I think we must understand, and I will talk about 9 types of frameworks where the teachers' competencies need to be worked upon. And the first one being the field competency, the teachers need to be really updated. And the second one is the research competency, having a control and use over, disciplinary circumstantial knowledge. The teachers must have the attitude of doing the research for new things and inculcating the same attitude amongst the students. The third thing is about curriculum competency. The systems, the instructions, the assessments, they all need to change. For example, these days, when we are having online learning programs, my teachers are now moved on to MS Forms. So through the forms, they're having the assessments of the children. And not only this, on OneNote and on OneDrive, the students are also sharing their learning with the teachers. The fourth type of competency that the teachers must have is the lifelong learning competency. That means it has to be an ongoing, voluntary, and self-motivated pursuit of knowledge. A child must know that I have to do it for myself. The responsibility factor has to be very high. The fifth one is the socio-cultural competency. That is the student's ability to accomplish proper cross-cultural communication. He is not only a child of my school, but of this country, and also having the feeling of belonging to the world community. So all these 4 C's come into place, that is communication, critical thinking, having an edge over the others in career planning, as well as communications. So emotional competencies, again, another part of competency that the teachers must have, that is the children should be very strong in the way they express themselves. The other thing is about emotional information and communication technology competencies. The most important one, if we look at the surveys done by, UN, there's a report submitted by Niti Aayog to UN. And this report says that 75% of teachers now in India are having ICT competency, which is really believable, because I do see in my school, there are 99% teachers are ICT savvy and they are trained. Then we also I want to talk about the 8th competency, and that is environmental competency. That is awareness of one's physical environment and its impact on one's activities. So the teachers need to undo and redo certain things. If the times are changing, they need to plan accordingly. And for this, they need to be trained from time and again. They need to be, there are very interesting training programs that we keep having for teachers at Amity, online as well as in-person programs. So all these things are very important to train the teachers up. And I think teachers need to know that students are also changing over the time. They want to learn with the ICT mode more, and they are tired of the chalk and talk method. So I think these things now need to be made part and parcel of teachers' classroom training programs.
Thank you so much. Very, very valuable inputs there. And these competencies are really, really important, I think. Now, I'll go to Ms. Katuria. Now, school is a platform where the students come and learn. So, if you want to give them the right skills, what resources should be available on the campus so the students get their best?
Dr. Reena, I think there is a network issue at Dr. Nandita's end. You may proceed to the next one.
Oh, she's not here?
Yeah.
Okay. No problem. Then I'll go to Dr. Amrita Vora. Are you able to hear me?
Yes, sir.
Dr. Vora.
Yeah.
So, I was just talking about the kind of resources that are available on the campus. And, if we have to build our students emotionally and psychologically, and, their behavior, we want them to be up to the mark in every which way. What kind of pedagogy will ensure that?
In the current times, as all the schools have started teaching online,
The child is no longer in the classroom where we can apply the same classroom ground rules, right? Now the ground rules have gone to the house. Of course, we can do remote learning, contracts and things like that with parents, which we have done all across. But the child is essentially also learning to self-discipline. Very, very key is one factor in whatever change we are talking about is the child taking ownership of their own learning. When children set goals, they want to achieve them. When children get into that loop of finding where the flaws are and learning from their mistakes, they want to learn. Now, yes, we are, as the fellow panelists have said, that it's a very closed kind of a system that we are into. There is less bit of freedom. I see it a little differently. I think ours is the only country where so far, at least till grade 8, we are completely set free. It's only after that that the boards, the Indian curriculum boards, essentially the ICSE, CBSE, more stringently take over, and teaching to the test becomes a little more prominent in the whole scenario. Otherwise, schools are changing and progressing in multiple ways. Visarthi mentioned that so many teachers, 75% teachers as per the Niti Aayog report, and actually in all urban schools, I'm sure 100% people, because that has become a life skill. It's no longer one of the skills. Coding has become a life skill, and children are learning it like that. This generation is learning it right from birth. They know it better than us. So, ownership has come in naturally with online learning to an extent. And if we just build a little more on it and bring it, we don't let this blended learning happen only because of this pandemic and the difficult time that we are into. We carry it back with us once the schools are back to normal, maybe a new normal, where we don't just try to move the same classroom. It won't happen if we try to do the same methods, older methods, onto the online platform. So teachers are using tools like Padlets, Kahoots, of course, Forms is one for assessment. So many more tools are available all over the internet. Children love the apps. They try to create memes, and they enjoy all of this as they learn. When we talk about physical, social, emotional development, in early childhood, this is one of the YFS key learning areas. So this is way more important than the child just learning numbers and maybe letters and so on, the 3 R's as they used to call it earlier. We really need to focus on emotions. What the whole pandemic has shown all of us is there was a debate that technology will replace education. Now we know that teachers is replaceable. Now we know, yes, there is technology, but the teacher is very much required. The human element is the key. The child who's just listening to so much stressful communication all around, cannot go out to play, locked into a house, really looks forward to seeing the face of the teacher. You have to see the smiles and feel them when children log in and they like to chat with each other. That is learning too. That is social and emotional development in so many ways. What schools need to go back to focusing way more is emotional development of children, is resilience. Each pandemic, this is not the first one, each pandemic is like a sort of a portal that creates it's a gateway to a new world that gets created after it. Like we are calling it the new normal. After each pandemic, there's been a lot of learning, a lot of churning of ideas, and then we come up with a new normal. In this new normal that we will have, we need to have less nuclear bombs and all of that, and more of empathy, more of humaneness, more of living with nature, more of resilience. SDGs are also essentially talking about a lot of these. And as we integrate these cannot be something which is peripheral to education. When we teach, every single topic can be linked to some SDG or the other. Every aspect of learning, you just have to mold the curriculum in such a way, and yes, teachers do it. It doesn't happen with one-off trainings, of course. Those are also needed. What is more needed is in-depth practice, what we call a professional learning community, when each teacher is anyway a learner and each one is a more knowledgeable other than the others. and everybody is learning from everybody. Everybody is trying and gaining from each other. That is when learning happens, becomes a culture for everybody. And that's when physical, social, emotional, overall development of children really happens.
Thank you so much. And I think the blended learning, like you said, is going to be the new normal. And we have to have the right balance between the classroom and the ICT enabled classes. Okay, now we have the similar question for Madhu Sharma. Are you there? Oh, yes. So,
Yes, I am.
so you were talking about ICT enabled classes. And of course, there's so much of internet these days, and students are using it all the time. I see even a 3-year-old child now getting interested in internet. But, it can become sometime a difficult thing for the teachers to handle because, they're learning too much, sometimes even more than required. So, do you think it's a boon or a bane? And sometimes, of course, there is a balance. But as a teacher, what do you think? Or as a principal, what do you think that internet is doing to the students?
Reena, thank you for this question, and I think it's a very relevant one. What I would like to say, the internet is not only a boon; it's a boom. In today's day and world, it is the best tool for learning, and the role of the teacher is not just a teacher, not an educator, but a facilitator. The teacher helps the children to work on the internet, and everything has to be controlled. It has to be supervised. You can't just leave them like that. You can't leave a student unsupervised even at home or outside of it. It has to be under supervision, some kind of supervision. But as I said before, that the internet has helped the child to become independent. Rather focusing on the teachers, right now we've been talking about teachers and training for them. They're well qualified, they're ICT trained, they have everything. But how they convert this training to the children as students, how they make use of it. The internet, there's so many portals nowadays. The children just go home. They don't need a tutor. They don't need anybody to help them out. They can go on the internet, get all their queries, their doubts, whatever they have, they can get it from the internet. And yes, as you said, it can be more than what a teacher can teach. But then teachers are not encyclopedias. They're not expected to know everything. They have their own limitations. And these limitations can be fulfilled by the internet. Because the internet not only helps the child, see if a child, I'll just give a small example. Suppose a child has a word that he wants to find the meaning on the internet. Let's take any word, if any one of you can suggest, or magnanimous. Okay, let's take magnanimous. So the child looks for the meaning of that word on the internet. 9 times out of 10, he's going to spell it wrong, he or she. So the internet tells him the right spelling. The internet tells the meaning. The internet helps the child to frame that word in a sentence. And as the child keeps opening pages, he gets a story about the magnanimous king. So the child went for a small, very small question and came out with a whole lot of knowledge just by going on the internet. The same would be done by the teacher, but the teacher will not go to that extent. Probably she would explain the meaning or put it in a sentence and help the child to figure out. But the teacher does not have, like I said, we all have constraint of time. Everywhere there's a constraint of time. So the teacher is in a way handicapped. She's not able to solve the queries of the child. So the internet comes into place. It helps the child to be creative. It's a resource center. It's a virtual classroom for the child. A lot of people say the internet makes the child lonely because it's a one-way communication. It is not, because now you have there are groups, there are people there who children who can get into the chat rooms, they can get into the virtual classrooms. They're online. There are a lot of online sites which are doing online teaching, online testing. They give the result to the children. They tell them their mistakes, like we all are doing right now with our children in our virtual classrooms, in the Zoom or whatever classrooms that we're taking. So the internet helps them in a very big way. They learn to be independent. They learn to be creative. I'm just going to sum it up. They learn innovation. They learn how to they tap their own resources. They come to know about their own potential. What are they capable of without? Yes, the guidance of the teacher is always there. Like I said, the teacher is a facilitator, but they learn to do things on their own. When they're given assignments, they're given work, they go onto different sites, they Google, they find it out. And let me tell you, this use of the internet is not only in our urban areas, it is also in the rural areas. Because I'm from a boarding, my children are in a boarding school, they've gone to their relatives in the rural areas, and they have been telling me, ma'am, that our uncle and aunts are very adept at using the internet, and they know how to log in, and they know how to. So this is something which is, it's an achievement by itself. I think the internet, Google Baba is our one-time solution to, when we are talking of innovative methods in teaching and innovative pedagogies, this itself, internet, I think, yes, it is a boom. It's a very handy tool.
It's here to stay. Yeah, absolutely.
It's here to stay, and it's the future. It's the future of education. It's not going to replace teachers for sure. So we don't have to get worried on that score. But yes, it is the future of education. Thank you.
Thank you for your views. And now we come to Yadav, Nirmal Yadav. We're thinking that lot of knowledge is coming in the way of, coming to the students, and there's hoard of knowledge and a lot of knowledge that they have to deal with. At the same time, we have to make them confident. We have to make them good citizens. We have to make them patriotic. A lot of challenges with this. So, through pedagogy or through the curriculum, how do you actually tackle these issues?
Yes, ICT, internet, technology has come in a big way. And fully agree with Madhu ma'am that yes, it has come to stay. And it is a big enabler. As even Ma'am Bora also said the same thing, that yes, it has come to stay. But at the same time, we have to enable the children that in this expressway of the internet or the internet highway, with the information and the knowledge, are they able to convert it into wisdom? Are they able to convert it into applicable things where they can literally find solutions to the unknown problems of tomorrow with today's knowledge? The sensitivity is required, the leadership skills are required. All these will be there when they are interacting with their peers, with their seniors, the civic sense, so many things. Like we say, the children, they will copy what you do. They may not listen to what you say. So here comes the role of social beings, because man is basically, we are gregarious. We cannot live in isolation. No matter how much knowledge you may get in isolation, you may even be able to do your research. That, of course, all happens in isolation only. But at the end of the day, we need to connect with people in real life situations. And this real life situations, I feel that we have to give them that courage with confidence, that they are physically strong, mentally competent. They learn to be humble in victory and graceful in defeat. They should have this confidence without arrogance. And at the same time, be sensitive towards others, emotional stability, intellectual prowess. All these things come by being together. And unless there is a teacher or a parent to do the hand holding on the internet highway, they may be left all by themselves. It's something like if your brakes fail, what do you do? So we will have to be those enablers in guiding them and making them help make the right choices, because tomorrow they are going to be decision makers and leaders. And all this knowledge, can they apply it to find solutions? That is very, very important. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Very well said. And now, Mr. Pathania, in fact, this question came naturally to us, you, that, we made the studies, the curriculum very child-centric now, because child has the last word in the classroom now, not the teachers anymore. So is that a problem? Because there could be a problem of discipline in the schools. So what are your views?
No, it's a very inquisitive thing, in fact, to discuss, no doubt. With the, I'll just take a minute back for the traditional way of teaching. Basically, we can call it a teachers-based pedagogy, which we used to have traditionally. If a teacher comes in and takes a lecture and leaves the class, and maybe the child is not, or the children are not participative in the class. So that is primarily which we mean by a teacher-based pedagogy, where the children are not participative in the system. Whereas the child-centered pedagogy is a modern way of getting children involved in the classroom, and the center of the pedagogy, and the center of the system happens to be the child, of course, and it has to be also because teaching is happening for him. Now, the reason for this shift from the traditional system to the child-based pedagogy is very simple, that with the kind of generation gaps we have studied in a very traditional way of systems, maybe some of us, maybe the quotient of intelligence, which is increasing generation by generation. Every second generation, every generation, you'll find there's a huge difference in terms of quotient of intelligence every child has. Thereafter, in fact, to sum up, basically, I can say that now with the increased technology usage in the education system, internet is the sea of knowledge. So basically what we have done, we have given a free access to knowledge to everyone. So knowledge is no more restricted in few hands, in few books, or at few places. It's very freely and easily accessible. Now the question comes in that the people who are teaching, or the people who are quoting or taking care of the children, these people must be very well read, and they must be mature enough to guide the child here. So I find at times the problem is not with the teaching pedagogy, whether it is child-centric. The problem is that have we correctly interpreted the way we should be taking up this pedagogy, which is a child-centric one. In fact, the child-centric pedagogy never says that the child is the supreme. It says the child is the central part of it. It's not that the child is supreme. So the thin line of difference which is there between getting the hang of how it is to be interpreted is very important. So the problem with the child central system is not with the not with the system, but with the interpretation and the implementation of it. Now I'll just share a very small example with you, and it happens quite often in our schools. Sometimes we see in a playground, maybe on a basketball court, you will see children are playing on a basketball court, and there's a teacher who's got a free period, and he's pretty available in the period. So he sees that the children are playing on the basketball court, and he might love to join that game if he's enthusiastic in sports. So he goes and plays with the child. It's very good. You tend to get involved with the child. Now, there's a very thin line of difference which you realize that while the teacher is playing, the children feel very happy about it. But if the child takes an extra advantage of that and goes to a level where, after the game, he hangs around his hand around the teacher's shoulder and takes him actually as a friend, or maybe, in a literal way, then we find, no, the thin line has been crossed here. So basically, it's not that the child-centric pedagogy is creating a problem. It's that understanding of the maturity where the thin line is being crossed, where the experience becomes absurd rather than being enjoyable, is where we need to understand. So we don't need to change the system, actually. We need to train the teachers better to make them more mature. At times in classrooms, you would find that the children tend to, intimidate the teacher by asking some relevant questions sometimes. It's very childish, for sure. But it's very important to, at the same time, to understand what is more relevant, what is not relevant for the child. So that call has to be taken by the teacher himself. So, your query, which was like, creating indiscipline because the result of pedagogy is not a fact, actually. We need to treat children as friends, as son, as a family member, for sure. But we need to know, we need to understand where is that thin line of difference which will need to be crossed. So an effective implementation and good training of the teachers will help. Thank you.
Absolutely. So there's a lot expected. The teachers now, I think, they have to become the kind of examples for the children. They can have faith on them.
Certainly. The child has to be the center of the pedagogy, of course, because we're teaching him. But certainly, we need to be more mature while taking up these things.
And is Ms. Nandita back on the panel? Not yet?
She was a while ago. We could see her.
She was a while ago, but I think she's gone off it. Yeah.
I think
can't see her anymore. So anyway, I think we'll have to do without her for the time being. And if she's back, then we'll try and hear her views also. Ma'am, Anything that you'd like to say at this point?
Yeah, I think we have had a very good discussion, and most of the thoughts were very similar, and each one of them has been passionate educators. So that was very clear from the views. So I just wanted to take you back from what we were talking about and going back. See, as we had millennial goals and we have sustainable development goals, but we have to remember that there are 5 of these major global goals, like every institution, especially schools, have to look into, and these 5 major goals are into people, planet, the prosperity, peace, and partnerships. So, and this has to be somewhere deep within in what we do in school. So what we saw in each of the thoughts, whether it was about lifelong learning, whether it was student-centric learning, whether it was using the internet platform for massive open online courses or the academic resources which are there, we have seen this happening time and again. But very interestingly, I think one thought which all of them have somewhere agreed, that there is very important to give a lot of emphasis to the life skills, be it their individual discipline, where some member already mentioned, or be it which used to be called as soft skills are now called as fundamental skills. So I mean, we have moved from different nomenclatures and different jargons, because now people have realized what were soft skills are the basis for decision making. For example, if you have to understand artificial intelligence later, you need to understand how humans function. So it has become now very imperative for schools to understand the overall philosophy, the overall aim. So basically, you are creating a human to become a knowledge creator, knowledge disseminator, and a collaborator. So you have to collaborate with people, and the way the world is moving in terms of the peace and the other issues that we are facing, and in today's time of this pandemic, we are suddenly aware that very different kind of teaching methods are important, where not only you are going to, because see, you had printing press earlier, where it came as a big innovation and there were like huge disruption. Then there were, when the internet came in, people thought, oh, I think the printing press are going to stop. But if you see, the primary objective is not these technology. The primary objective is the knowledge. So this technology is going to be the means to our end. And like at the end, the gentleman spoke that you also have to identify that when you are making your students lifelong learners, you're also going to make them as good human beings. So that today, in the time of crisis, the kind of problems that you see in the society where they're bashing up doctors or killing neighbors, all those things will stop. And so we are moving to a world that you have to move towards peace. So the role of schools will also have to be that you try to groom youngsters who can become good human beings and who are able to understand. And I was also thinking, Reena, that if you could, like, of course, we have made details of, we are noting down each of these points that has come through, and we are going to circulate this paper, and each one of the experts can also, add on to that paper that we have there, and we are going to definitely put it across to different schools and also submit it to the higher education and to the policy and to the government. And possibly if there's something which is very good, you look at the Niti Aayog has been working on it, and in terms of the indexes. So all of this, I think everybody's individual views that have come together will contribute in creating this policy document. So thank you, and I wish everybody a very safe and good times ahead. And in spite of these crises that we have, let's look at the positive side and try to look after themselves and look after the family and their students of the schools. Thank you.
Did